Hello everyone and welcome to my channel Uxtsuki. In this video, I'm gonna talk about cluster. And this video I was waiting for a while because I think cluster is something that I started to get the hang of it, and I'm getting more and more comfortable into using it. And not that long time ago, I was actually avoiding it at any cost. So my pixel art was flat because of my fear not to using it that well. Let's go with the concept. What is cluster? Cluster is a group of pixels that can be any size. So a single pixel, pixel, or even 1,000 pixel where area might be a cluster. And for what is clusters used? Usually, clusters are used to either imply texture or imply details. Space cluster as an opportunity to describe what you are doing even more. Because as I said in the beginning of the playlist, in pixel art we abstract a lot of things in order to preserve the idea of what that thing is by implying things. And obviously, just the implication of something with the context might be not enough. So with cluster, with these implications, with this detail that we imply in things, impress exactly what we needed in order to sell that thing is what we wanted. So for example, I am pretty sure that was the channel NMC Yonis that said we could imply grass as a cluster plus a hint. So I do not need to make every single grass leaf. I just need to imply this is something, is a group of something really condensed, abstracted, plus the hint what it is. So this opened my mind in a way that instead of being afraid of using cluster, I was tempted to use it even more. And clusters as well are able to add texture into something. For example, if you have anything and you start by adding clusters of any size that makes sense, you will impress the texture you wanted without making for every single part of it. I think the greatest example is something like this. I won't tell what it is, and I hope you are able to identify what I'm trying to do. So imagine this thing. So what is this? It is hard to tell, I know. But if I do something like this, now this accidentally is being read as a wall of something like bricks or either stones. And that is the point. I didn't need to place every single brick of it like we used to do. Because yes, I did it as this a lot when we are beginners that we think we need to make every single brick in order to transmit this is a brick wall. So even though this may not seem that bad in the beginning, actually it's because I didn't make this. So you may think this is not that bad, and even you might say that it's not that bad, even being like this, but I guarantee you that this would steal every single attention you might have from the focal points that is actually what you want that people look at. So this can be totally placed in the background of any game pixel art, but this cannot. So this is the point. Clusters also is good to imply depth. Imagine this ball, right? So it is comprehensible that the light is coming like from here. If I had like actually two balls, one over the other, even though I can like understand this is like one overlapping the other, this is bad, right? What can I do in order to transmit this is overlapping each other? So first I could, let me just darken this just a bit. So I could use cluster to make this. Now it makes a bit more sense like this. So I used two clusters to imply depth. This one and this one. Actually, it's not two because you might understand this is one, this is one, and this the single pixels are one as well. So actually five clusters. But understand that with this thing, I added depth into something that was just flat. I think this is a really good exercise because, for example, if you are trying to draw a skull, I won't making it, but just an example. If you are trying to make a skull, you know that a lot of things overlap the cranium, right? So a lot of things like these parts right here, does not to be draw every single one of them. Just need to imply that there is teeth or imply this is behind. So using cluster for this is actually pretty useful. I just wanted to say that clusters as well, when you are adding them, you also are adding flow because usually you adding flow with it, being conscious about this. So pay attention because, for example, this could not be, for example, a bush because usually bushes have like something that clusters in the center and the other clusters usually point to this, like are emerging from this to the extremes. In this case, all clusters are actually pointing that way. So unless in the perspective my bush center is here, this might actually be, for example, fur that usually have only one direction in a certain part of the body, you know? Breaking clusters as well is a really important thing. So imagine I am making, I don't know, that part of the pumpkin that jumps out of the subject. So this, if this is part of the pumpkin, usually pumpkins have this really rough shape, right? But inside of this, the things are pretty smooth compared, for example, scales that actually layer upon the other. So if I'm lighting this, for example, pretty easy into this being flat anyways. The way that you might avoid this is breaking clusters. But there is a counter side of it because when you break cluster, basically you are making a mitosis, right? Like it's actually multiplying by dividing. So when you do something like this, that is breaking the cluster. You know, this it will be very pointy, but this is not what pumpkin texture would feels like. So actually, I will get rid of these pointy parts. So now I broke this, and I could break even more like this. Or for example, if I feel this is bending, like it feels like a pillow shading, or it's just making everything flat, I could break it as well. But as I said, these have a downside. This is way more clustered. So now, instead of being read as a pumpkin skin, this actually might be read as scales or even lumps or fat or whatever. Like this is not being read as a pumpkin skin. Actually, this could be read as turtle's arm, for example. Do you agree? So breaking cluster is pretty useful. and important sometimes in order to avoid flatness, but you will add more clusters that would imply even more texture. So pay attention to it. Clusters is actually something that is really hard to master because it does not have a shape defined. You might, for example, create a human face and paint with a lot of clusters. And this is hard. Like people who do this, usually they are really great and they actually advanced or even masters in pixel art. The exaggerated usage of clusters I do not recommend for neither beginners, neither intermediate, like as myself, because this usage of clusters to imply every single thing is pretty hard, right? But it is something that we need to face because, as I said, a lot of things that we abstract can be done with just a cluster plus a hint, and actually would make everything less noisy. I just wanted to close this video two things, that is orphan pixels and pixel art as clusters, because this can be clustered, right? So actually if you have a scene without a lot of orphan pixels, for example this is intended to be read as universe and stars, actually, it's just getting noisy. This can be your pixel art style. If you do not want to have a noisy or either polluted pixel art style, actually it's better to have only few and actually even enhance them in order to transmit the idea you want. So cleaning the other pixels and enhancing them is better than having a lot of single pixels that would could be read as one thing but actually are just making the piece less readable. And also, since pixel art can be as tiny as a single pixel or huge as a big one, you might actually face pixel art as cluster placement. These could make your brain explode because it is a really crazy thing to face like, but sometimes when you are trying to make things in a very unique way, you might feel the urge to actually try this out. Alright? So thanks for watching and see you in the next video. Bye.